Today we're going to be talking about 4 woodworking projects that actually make you money. How do I know they make money? I'm not speculating, I've actually done it. These are 4 projects that I have done repeatedly in the past that have earned me income. And I'm not talking about selling knickknacks at craft shows, I'm talking about like real money you can make a living off of. And if you stick around to the end, I'll even throw in some tips as to how you can get these jobs. So let's get into it. All right. So, first one here. Replacement cabinet doors. All right, so now let me be completely honest. In 2021, I actually started doing cabinet painting. I didn't want to, I still don't want to, but I saw a really great opportunity with a contractor I knew. We started talking about numbers, and 85 jobs later, officially, I just finished up number 85, and hundreds of thousands of dollars, I ended up being a cabinet painter. On top of that, I'm also a cabinet maker. I don't have enough space to do full kitchens, but I do built-ins, and last year, Jack, out of the trash. Wolf dog. Last year, I started adding something to my pricing sheet. Now, I originally added this as a price anchor. Now, cabinet painting is an expensive thing. It's labor intensive. It should be expensive. And I started replacing all of their cabinet doors. That way, when I hand them the bid, they see the big number and then the not as big but still big number, and it takes some of the shock value out of it. What I didn't expect was that every time that I offered this service to someone who actually had crappy doors, they took this service. So, if you have a router table or a table saw, anyone can do this. If you know how to finish, you're set, you're ready to go. So all you're gonna do is you take your rough openings, your overlays, all that, you make all your doors, and then you have 2 options. You can either find painters, offer this service to your painters, and then they do all of that work, or you can use a paint that you can actually apply by hand to save you a big headache, or you can spray, and you can do the in-house work yourself. This is a very, very profitable business. It's mostly labor. You probably already have the tools. You have a router table, do you have a table saw, do you know how to finish? If you can do all of those things, you can make a ton of money on this. I'm still to this day shocked at how many people opt for the replacement doors. Go ahead and make a few doors, paint them up so they can see your nice fancy finish, and you're good to go. So that's number 1, replacement cabinet doors. All right. Keep in mind that I did another video with 3 of these tips, and I said right in there, people are more willing to spend money on something that they view as an investment in their home. Okay. So that's sort of how I gear my business towards is investing in their home, because they feel like when they sell the house, they can get this money back out. If they buy an expensive table, it's not really an investment. So they're more willing to pony up $3,000, $4,000, $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 for something like this. They're the kitchen of their dreams. They've saved, $20 to $40K on brand new cabinets and countertops. So it's a win-win for everybody. Anytime in business you have a win-win, it's a good thing. So that's number 1. Cabinet doors. All right, number 2 is tabletops or table bases. Now, obviously, we'd love to sell both together, but what I'm getting at here is that you can take advantage of other companies, work with them, and you get a nice, beautiful thing. Because what happens is you have 2 businesses that have nothing to do with each other and necessarily don't have anything to do with you, but we can all work together in beautiful harmony. And I just did this recently, and I'll put pictures up of that. But you can work with countertop companies or metal fabricating companies, and you can either make the tabletop for the metal fabricating bases, or you can make the table base for the countertop companies. They get people all the time, I would like a stone-topped table. Well, they may not have someone to make the base. So, same thing with the metal fabricators. Hey, we want this fancy metal table base. Do you know anyone who can make a top? They might not know anyone who can make the top. So, once again, you're kind of dealing with other companies, you're taking advantage of those relationships, but you got to build those relationships first. The last table base that I just did, that countertop company, we had just kind of been popping in and out of the same jobs. I would paint the cabinets here, they do the countertops here, I would do this there, and trim this house out where they did the counters. And we just developed a relationship. But you can also get on Instagram and social media and just go to home and garden shows, reach out to these people, introduce yourself, and hey, this is how I can help you, and they'll help you back. So that's number 2. I know it's a little kind of another way of looking at it, but it's easy sales and it's good money. So number 2, table bases or tabletops, not necessarily together. Together, also great. That's probably even better. But This is sort of a way that you can kind of extend your influence. They already have clientele coming to them for a thing. You're just taking advantage of that. It's a high leverage marketing move. So that's number 2. Okay, so number 3 is a little bit more advanced in terms of tooling and things like that, but it's not so advanced that it's outside of the realm of possibility, and that is interior doors. Now, last year I did an interior door job, and I'll tell you up front, it was a $20,000 job. It was a lot of doors, and it was my first really big job. Now, I'll put some pictures up. These were Santa Fe style doors. They had to have some arches to them. And I don't own a shaper, but I still managed to make them all. And I way undercharged on this one, but I made a ton of doors. And I used my router table to do so. Now, if you don't have an inlay or anything like that, any fancy detail on the sides of your stiles and rails, then just a domino joiner or just cutting mortise and tenons the old-fashioned way will be perfectly fine. If you're going to do exterior doors, you want to make sure, no ifs, ands, or buts, that you use stave core. That means that you may have to do some resawing. Now, you can resaw on your table saw if you don't have a bandsaw within limits, but stave core is absolutely the way to go, I think, in general, but especially if it's exterior. Interior doors, I'd still do stave core, but you can kind of get away with doing like a laminate, in which you take just 2 pieces of like 4/4, skip plane them. You don't need them perfectly flat because you want to see the direction that they're already going. You want them bowing opposite ways, laminate those together. That's actually a very stable way to do it as well. I did quite a bit of that in this last job, but stave core, that's the way to go. Something that you should keep in mind. You may want to avoid going directly to customers with this if you've never installed doors. Now, I have a finished carpentry background. I have installed at least hundreds and hundreds of doors. I know all the tricks. I have all the tools. I will be honest with you, if you've never installed doors before, especially doing big, heavy, solid ones, maybe you want to try and reach out to remodelers, finished carpenters, things like that, and offer them just the slab. You know, trying to do pre-hung doors can be a little bit tricky. So if you just give them the slab, the carpenter takes a slab, they do all the mortising for hinges, things like that, they cut out for the knobs, they install it, it's their problem. Maybe that's the route you want to take if you do not have any experience with doors, especially custom doors. And the truth is, there's a lot of want for custom doors. Most door shops are very busy. They don't want to do one-offs. I have a place near me that does fantastic work, but they don't, if they're going to do custom work, they charge a fortune for it. That's how I ended up getting this job. So something to keep in mind there. Maybe you don't want to handle the installs, but doing interior doors is something that can be extremely lucrative, especially when you start to get away from just like the paint grade poplar, unless it's like a really weird size that they need. But getting into more of the specialty work, the hardwood, things like that, that can be a very, very profitable job to be doing. And it's something you can do in a small shop, especially if you're only doing small quantities of them. Like I said, I way undercharged on that job from last year, and I still made a boatload of money. So interior doors, it's a little bit more technical, maybe requires a little bit more tooling, but it's also very profitable. So keep that one in mind as number 3. It's a very solid option for a small shop. Okay, the final one on this list, I really debated on adding it or not, but I just recently did a job where it made perfect sense, and that is decorative beams. Now, you have to really, as a woodworker, to make this one work, you have to really kind of do some fancy stuff. And just give me 2 seconds as I walk off camera. I'm a professional, honest. So you want to probably do some of the more fancy stuff, not so much just pine boards over top. That's something that most of your carpenters are going to handle in the field. But in this particular case, this particular client wanted ambrosia maple with a little bit of curl to it. They wanted a hand-honed look. I'm going to try and get it in here so you can see I did 2 massive beams, and I charged a lot of money to do these beams. It's something that there is probably a market for this out there. And if you're not doing the install, it's a pretty simple, easy way to do it. Now, the installs can be tricky. You need scaffolding, things like that. Your layout really depends on which direction the joists are going. Maybe you have to use drywall anchors, all of that. But again, if you make these contacts with finished carpenters, remodelers, things like that, when they do come up with that they want some sort of really fancy beam, there's not a lot of places that they can get them. So something to keep in mind as you're making these contacts. Hey, yeah, this is something I can do. So these custom kind of faux beams that just sort of wrap around a framing material and install, these can be really lucrative. Again, I am a carpenter, so I installed all these in the field. I'll put pictures up. But it's something to consider because I was able to charge a ton of money for this, and the customer was thrilled. So I went ahead and threw it in there. Custom beams, again, it goes under the whole millwork category. But yeah, custom beams. Okay, so how do you get jobs like this? Now, as I mentioned earlier when I was talking about painting cabinet doors, I actually subcontract most of that work. Of the 85 jobs I've done, probably 60 to 65 of them have been through another contractor, a painting contractor. I exclusively do all of his work for him, and he makes a little money. I make a lot of money. The truth is, I've made like hundreds of thousands of dollars working with this guy. And that's kind of a key point. When you do these sorts of jobs, you're able to work with other people in the industry that may be competitors otherwise. And when you're working with them, you may take a little bit of a haircut, or you may not get the money for the install, but basically you're using leverage. So you're using them to help get your name out there. If they're bigger than you on social media, and they're tagging you in things, that's growing your social media. It's getting you in front of more eyeballs and earballs, and that's how you grow a business. You have to grow a brand. Now, every one of these projects are projects that one person can do in a small shop. I know this because I'm one person in a small shop. And I've built a business. Now, I do cabinet painting and I do finish carpentry as well. I'm not 100% a woodworker, but I've built a business that's 6 figures plus every year. And I'm not talking about before tax and before expenses. So if you're really thinking about getting into business for yourself, it's a viable business these days, okay? So how do you make these contacts? I mentioned it earlier, home and garden shows, the internet, introduce yourself, try and find like if there's any building associations, things like that. It basically boils down to networking. And you always want to approach things in a like, how can I help you? And everything needs to kind of be win-win when you're in these situations. Like, trust me, I'm a really competitive dude, but the important thing is that everybody's making money in these situations. You don't want to be taken advantage of, but you also will not make it very long if you have a reputation of taking advantage of other people. So that's number one, is to get out there and talk to other contractors. Another great way to go about getting these kind of jobs is realtors. They are everywhere. Some of them are excellent, some of them are lazy, but get to know as many of them as possible. You can maybe even do a program, a referral program, where if they refer you a job of, say, X amount of $2,000, you're gonna, boom, Venmo. As soon as you get the contract signed, you get a deposit, you Venmo them $100. They'll bust their ass for you, because guess what they don't have is steady income. They only get paid when they sell a house. So any kind of opportunity, especially if you're the real deal and they're not afraid to represent you, to do something like that, they're going to jump on it. So you're again, that's a very good way to get these sorts of jobs. And then how you present them. Like I said before, people love to spend money on investments in their homes. They can justify breaking out the pocketbook for things like that, because whether you consider your personal residence an investment or not, most people do consider it, and that's a different financial argument. But if they're buying a very expensive table, that's just an expense. You can pitch this as an investment and use the word investment as much as possible. It's a bit of a sales technique, but you're not really completely lying. You're not really lying at all. It could be an investment. So yeah, those are some of the key things to sort of get these type of jobs. And these in-home kind of millwork jobs, that's my bread and butter. I started off as a carpenter doing the installs for these sorts of things, and it didn't take me long to figure out, like, wow, I'm paying this much for this door, I can make the door. Or I'm paying this much for a mantle, I can make the mantle. Put that money in my pocket, and that's how I became a woodworker. So yeah, this is something that I think a lot of woodworkers don't really look at. To get into this business, they got a small shop and they're just making cutting boards and trinkets and doodads, or they're just doing fence picket stuff, or they're trying to sell really high-end furniture and they're building it without a client to begin with, because that's a hard nut to crack. I promise. I've been trying to do it for some time. You have to be able to spend a bunch of upfront money to build very interesting pieces, knowing that you'll probably never actually sell them, just to get clients to buy them later. So this is sort of a way to get some cash flow going, to reinvest that money into your business, to upgrade tools, things like that. And it's a very profitable thing. You can run your whole business this way. I do. So yeah, that's a great way to get started getting these jobs. If you want to know more about the business end of things, I have the ability now to have memberships because I have over 1,000 subscribers, 1,300 and change now. Thank you all very much. I'm extremely appreciative. So I think that I might use like the subscriber or member, I forget what members. I think it's like a $2 to $3 a month paywall. I think I'm going to make that very business specific things. I went to college for business and accounting. I've been in business for a long time. I've been in a couple businesses. I very briefly did a little bit of a stint as a, I always forget this word. So yeah, I know a little thing or two about the business end of things. Maybe we can even do like some individual live streams, things like that. So if you want to join, or the membership thing, that would be fantastic. If not, if you've enjoyed this and you made it this far, do me a favor and like, subscribe, hype now, do the things. I will see you next time. Leave me a comment if you need anything answered. And until then, go build shit. Thanks. Bye.